welcome back, everybody. We are doing a tier list today on the Fantastical Parade meta, specifically for ranked. I want to say thank you all. We hit 20,000 subscribers, which means I'm giving away a full art research on this video. All you have to do is make sure you're subscribed, drop a comment, and I will pick someone at random. You can like the video too. It doesn't do anything to improve your chances, but it would be much appreciated. So let's head over here to the tier list. All right, first deck I want to talk about is going to be, and yes, we will have the deck list for every single deck we talk about, is going to be Blaziken. Now, Blaziken, you guys know I hate this deck. I think I'm doing it a favor by ranking it mid-tier. The reason why I'm putting it mid-tier is this deck is incredibly powerful. By the way, this deck list that I even have here, I'm just now realizing has a Furfrou. Cut that Furfrou, put a Cleffa in. This is for the real audio listeners only. You mindless, deck list copying, slop lovers, I don't know, you're going to play the Furfrou and you're going to be very sad that you're playing it. I'll put a Cleffa in here instead. You guys know I don't like this deck. It is high roll on your only real attacking threat is Mega Blaziken. If you don't see Mega Blaziken, you lose the game. That's just how it is. So I don't love trying to set up a stage 2, but I cannot deny that if you get Mega Blaziken set up early, it is one of the scariest decks to deal with in the game. There's not a lot that can deal with a turn 2 Mega Blaziken swinging for 140 damage. Those are really my thoughts on it. It's not the most consistent thing in the world, but when it works, it will work. It will just mow through your opponent, and that's kind of it. This is a gambler's deck. I think there are better high roll decks out there. The only benefit I can see to playing this over some of those other high roll decks is avoiding the mirror match, or you just like Blaziken as a Pokemon more than the other ones. Here we have Altaria Greninja, and I almost don't know where to put this because I rank other Altaria variants higher than I do this deck right here. There have been some changes from this format to the last, where we are now seeing more and more versions of this deck tech either one or, like you see here, double Jirachi instead of Chingling. So instead of trying to stall your opponent, you are more focused on increasing your bench sniping capabilities between the Greninja and the Jirachi, damaging the opponent's threat that you really have to worry about with Jirachi plus Greninja, and setting up for just one big Altaria knockout to try to win you the game. Now, I think this deck is good, but again, I rank other Altaria variants higher. I think I could go high tier on this deck. I played it a lot last format, and really my problem with it was that Chingling started to be a much less viable early game attacker for it, because a lot of things teched in Poison Barbs. Chingling's attacking into Poison Barbs is just not fun at all. Neither are Rocky Helmets. But now that we have Jirachi, I might like the deck list a bit more. I have not tried this Jirachi build, but I think from my experience with it last format, where it was my most played deck, I can say that this is a progression that makes sense. I don't think it'll be as strong as it was last format. Again, I've got other Altaria lists I like more currently, but I think nonetheless, it is still a very, very strong deck. It's Altaria plus Greninja. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous to put those two together and have it work. Next, we have a deck that, I'm going to be honest, I don't really like at this current point in the meta. I think there are too many things that can deal with Oricorio, and not a lot that can't. That's kind of why you play it, is if the meta's... This is a deck that is totally dependent on what does the meta look like at the moment. Nothing really changed for it as far as the deck list. Some of them are playing a Lucky Ice Pop in there, but other than that, it's not like it got buffed or nerfed in some way. It's just, right now, a lot of the decks in the meta have a way to deal with it. Like, your greatest matchup were Altaria decks, and now a lot of them just have a way to deal with Oricorio. And when Altaria is as good as it is at the moment, and they really laugh at Oricorio, that's bad. It loses to Hydreigon pretty hard. That's a fantastic deck right now. I don't know how favored it is into really any of the top 3 or 4 decks. Maybe against Suicune, it can do fine, but for the most part, this deck is taking more bad matchups than it is good matchups. It can prey on a lot of this stuff in like mid-tier, rogue tier, maybe even high tier, but these top tier decks, which are going to be the decks you see more than anything else, it it more than likely loses to, and that's just not a good strategy to go with for ranked. So I'm going to leave it mid-tier just off of the fact that its matchup data, its matchup spread has gotten worse going into this new set. Next up, we're going to kind of just blow through all of these because there are so many variants of this deck that it's kind of hard to like there's not a big difference between any of them, and these are all the Mega Kangaskhan decks. So the Greninja Oricorio one, I think, can go at the very, very bottom of high tier. This is probably the best deck. It is sort of the hardest one to play, in my opinion, because it is a Greninja Oricorio deck that has never been a really easy strategy to pull off in the game. But these Kangaskhan decks are, honestly, as the meta goes on, starting to pick up even worse matchups, like all of the new stall stuff, which we will talk about on this tier list. It really doesn't have a great time into those decks. It's getting harder and harder to justify playing Mega Kangaskhan. Next, we have the Daycare version. Daycare, I would put like top of mid tier. This is kind of where I think Kangaskhan lives, is right between mid tier and high tier, and I just think the Greninja Oricorio variant is better. Now on this one, I know Jimbo, we did a tier list, and he really thinks that this deck is going to be amazing for ranked because of how quick it is and how you can win games very fast. I think that it will just, while it plays through its games very quickly, I don't know that its win rate is going to be good enough to sort of alleviate that. And then we have the Oricorio, just standard Oricorio variant. I think that this one is below the Darkrai one, to be honest, because like I said with Oricorio is not really stopping a whole lot. Really, the benefit of the Greninja Oricorio variant is boosting Oricorio's damage, setting up for Cyrus plays, and the Oricorio is just sort of there to like distract your opponent for the start of the game to build up to your giant Kangaskhan at the very end. Now, there is one more variant that is classified differently, but it's essentially the same deck. It's Greninja Kangaskhan. It's basically the same deck as this, but instead of going all in on double Oricorio, it plays like one Oricorio and a Darkrai instead. It's very, very similar to this deck. Again, all of these decks are trying to accomplish the same thing. Set up Kangaskhan, let it go wild. It's just like, what are the tools to help you do that more consistently, or give you a game plan to delay the time until the Kangaskhan is ready? You know, they all want to just like Ilma up the Kangaskhan, try to cycle it twice, use some other supplementary attackers to get things online. And for me, when I play Kangaskhan, I always feel like there is just a piece missing. It doesn't feel like the most broken thing in the world. So like, I can only do mid tier for these other variants, and then high tier for the one that has been performing the best in tournaments. Next, we have Charizard, and I think I'm fine with putting it somewhere here in mid tier. I think that this deck only got worse from last format, and I wouldn't have ranked it any higher than mid tier last format, so I can't really give it much more than this. So my problem with Charizard at the moment is it gained a couple things going against it. Altaria now has a way to very easily knock out the Entei early. They can go Altaria plus the Stadium in play that allows them to hit for 140 damage, and that is going to be an Entei gone, and now you're struggling to get a Charizard set up in time to do so. It also, Suicune at the beginning of the meta wasn't as prevalent. I really think it's going to be around in ranked, which is not great. You could play a Protective Poncho in here, but I don't think it flips the matchup enough. Hydreigon is an extremely powerful deck. The deck doesn't have the best time in the world against it. And to further the Altaria matchups getting bad, the Altarias now play, you know, bench snipe like Lele or Jirachis. They're more focused on that. That's going to hurt your Charizard while it's on the bench as well. And again, I don't think Protective Poncho is the solution for this deck, unfortunately, because putting 2 in the deck is a really big ask. Putting 1, you just might not hit it in time. There's a lot going against the Charizard deck. Now, what is nice about it is, again, these stall decks are starting to come into the format. This is one of the only decks that can very easily deal with any stall deck you see. Your opponent is spending all their time putting 4 energy onto those Pokemon, and you are just able to nuke it, completely waste all of their time, and the Charizard can very easily take a second knockout from there and just win you the game. They're also so slow to get set up, like it's almost guaranteed that you'll have a Charizard online by the time their stall Pokemon is even attacking, so it does take a very good matchup into stall stuff, but I don't know how prevalent stall will be on the ranked ladder. We've yet to see what that is going to look like. I apologize, I had to cut because an ad started playing. So if these stall decks are going to be a thing, then Charizard is a good play. But on the other side, if Suicune is everywhere, this deck is not going to be the play. It's just going to lose to Suicune so often. It's not even worth your time playing, to be honest. And again, like even the Altaria stuff has become a worse matchup. I just don't like its positioning in the meta overall. Yes, stall is an improved thing for you to run into, but a lot of these top tier decks now have a better way to deal with it. When they used to be a good matchup for the deck, they now no longer are. I have seen this deck go on some runs in tournaments, and honestly, it is very surprising to me. Again, I played it a lot last format. Nothing has really improved with it. I think it's overall gotten worse. It is not really a pick I would take for ranked, and it doesn't even really have high roll potential. I mean, it kind of does, but it's not like, oh, I won the game on turn 2. It's, well, there are some times. If you get a very quick Entei, maybe you knock out your opponent's alone Dino. Cool. You won the game early, but that's not going to happen too often. You know, at best, maybe your opponent takes an early knockout on Entei and, oh, surprise, I was holding double Flame Patch Charizard, Mega Charizard in my hand, blow up your Mega, I win. Not going to happen all the time, though. So, overall, just a mid-tier deck for me for ranked. I gotta be honest, I'm not gonna throw a deck list up because right now we are going to speed run some of the worst decks in the format. I just want them on here so you guys know and you don't have to ask me about it in the comments. Gyarados, it's too slow. It's not positioned well into the meta at the moment. Mega Mawile, if you don't go first, you probably lose. There are a lot of decks that can just very easily deal with this. You auto lose to Oricorio. I'm not a fan of this deck at all for ranked. Mega Swampert, again, too slow, can discard energy from itself, leaving itself stranded in the active spot, not attacking. It feels like, it's like if you want to play Mega Swampert, just play Blaziken. Blaziken is essentially the same deck, but this one is easier to set up, doesn't need as much energy, don't need to dedicate everything to getting energy online. It's just the better overall deck. This guy is not cutting it. What else? Mega Venusaur. We see a lot of stall decks doing very well into the meta. I think that this one is not great because you need to get into the Ivysaur and then the Venusaur. A lot of decks can just nuke the Ivysaur early, meaning you lose the game. It is so matchup dependent. It's ridiculous. It takes a good matchup into like Suicune, and that's kind of it. This deck is no good. Please do not play it for ranked. We have Donphan Lucario. I think the power ceiling on this deck is worse. And we have better decks that are much better decks that are, I play one Pokemon, he tries to win me the game. Yes, the Lucario and the new stadium buffing it up are cool, but I honestly would not consider this for ranked at all. Maybe the best benefit of it is that games probably won't take you too long, and you really don't have to think when you're playing it, so it's a very easy deck to just kind of second monitor on your phone, right? Like maybe have a YouTube video like this one, playing in-app, and then you're playing Donphan, and you don't really have to pay all that much attention to it. Alolan Ninetales, as much as I would love to say it's Rogue, because it is a very funny deck, again, just the power level is not there for this deck. If your opponent has any idea what they're doing, they will just not put up a Pokemon until it has enough energy to at least have one discarded and still be able to attack into this. Think Altaria. If Altaria just gets 3 energy on it, you probably lose the matchup on the spot. It's not a great deck right now. These two Magnezone variants I will also throw into this tier. I'm also not going to spend time ordering them because these are all just, again, please don't play these for ranked. Know that if you are doing so, you are accepting that you are going to be at a severe disadvantage to any of these other decks on the list. I'm honestly going to throw Guzzlord in here as well. I don't know what this deck is doing. I've seen it maybe day 2 at like one tournament. It's just, again, the power level of this deck is far too low compared to the other stuff we have on these lists for you to actually consider. And same thing with Mega Lopunny. Yes, you can absolutely high roll with it. You can knock out basically any mega with double heads from Lopunny and steal some games, but that is only going to happen 25% of the time, and otherwise, you're probably going to get absolutely bodied. Next, we'll talk about Crobat, and I really want to put it Rogue, but I think there's one factor that would make me throw it in mid-tier, which is the speed of the deck. I think this is just Hydreigon, but worse, but it does have the benefit of, hey, if I just go turn 2 Rare Candy into Crobat, it's really, it can be difficult for my opponent to win. Now, I have been able to recover from it and still win against the Crobat deck. It's not like a guaranteed win. You're only doing 70 damage plus whatever the poison is, which can be enough to knock out some low HP guys, but if there's a big HP Pokemon in there, it's not going to have the best time. It also has trouble against Stall. Crobat only hits for 70 base. Yes, the poison is going to go through any damage reduction they have, but they have so much HP that I don't think this deck can really deal with Stall at all. Like, they're going to passive heal. They play Pokemon Center ladies. They're going to be able to get through it. If you run into a Stall deck with Crobat, it's probably just over for you, honestly. You'll get, again, the 60 passive damage, but the Crobat's only going to be hitting for 50 or 30 against, depending on what Stall deck it is. It's not going to have a great time. So I got it here in mid-tier for the high roll potential, but just know this is teetering on Rogue for me. It's very, very close. We'll do Whimsicott. I barely take this deck seriously, but again, this is something that has gained a decent matchup into the meta because of these Rogue counter, or these Stall counter decks, but you really don't want your primary strategy to be, I'm probably going to lose to most things, but I beat the counter to the meta. It's not strong. You have to set up all of these stage 1 grass types. You got to find them all for the Whimsicott to actually start doing damage. And it's a very squishy EX. You have energy problems. You can play X speed to try to alleviate that, but you have to find the X speed or else it's not going to work out for you. Just a low power ceiling on this deck. And it's plagued by just general inconsistency issues. Next, we have Buzzwole, and I apologize for the weird list here, the way it's formatted, but I don't think you're going to need to worry much. I am Buzzwole's #1 fan, next to Illusion. I guess he's got the title. All right, I'll concede. But I do love me some Buzzwole. And unfortunately, I think as the meta progresses, he gets worse and worse. It looked like maybe there was a slot available for Buzzwole at the beginning of the meta, but now that Suicune has come back, now that Stall decks are back, and we are really not doing a whole lot of damage, this deck feels really, really poorly positioned into this current meta. So unfortunately, I gotta put Buzzwole in Rogue. It is strong fundamentally, but I think there are too many things going against it for this point in time in ranked. Putting it Rogue is, I mean, I'm honestly doing it a favor. Any of these Rogue decks, I'm doing a favor from not just putting them into the if you're lucky it might work eventually tier. Like, these guys are real, they're not going to be picks for me. Honestly, when I look at my, like, what am I going to play for ranked, I usually only consider high tier or top tier, and maybe I will dive into mid tier if I just want to have some fun, or I think things aren't really working out with any of my high tier decks. Maybe I'm trying to specifically counter one archetype that I keep hitting a lot. But Rogue and these tiers, I really will never consider. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be considering Buzzwole for ranked. I found one more deck to snipe into the bottom of the barrel, and that's Absol Obstagoon. This deck, I've said it a million times, started the format out very good. But unfortunately, it was piloted by good players who had a good list at the very, very start of the format. And after that, once the meta sort of got figured out, we realized that Obstagoon just does not have the power level needed to consistently keep up with the top deck. So I would not seriously consider this deck at all. Maybe it could be Rogue, but I'm unimpressed by this deck in basically every single way. We'll talk about Leafeon Ogerpon very quickly. It is another Rogue deck, I believe. For this deck to even work, you have to, every game, start EV, evolve into Leafeon immediately, and start putting energy down. It is just naturally a inconsistent deck. And so, not only that, but the power level of it is really not that high. At max, you're doing 120 with Ogerpon. With a Leaf Cape, he goes up to 160 HP. I mean, why not just play Suicune at that point, who can do that much damage for less energy and also draws you cards. Doesn't need a stage 1 to get it set up and all the energy required on it. I don't really see a point in playing this deck. It is kind of fun. Like, I love Energy Acceleration. I love Leafeon, and I have a couple of nice blinged out Ogerpons. I got a full art and a rainbow, so I would love for the deck to be good, but unfortunately, I don't think it's positioned well into this meta at all. Jolteon, I'm not really too sure what to do with. I think I will put it in Rogue, but I will tell you, Jolteon is the easiest deck in the game to play. This deck plays itself. There is almost no thought required when you are piloting Jolteon EX. So, if that sounds like something that maybe fits your skill level, maybe fits your need for ranked at the moment, it could be more like a mid-tier deck for you. But the overall power level of this deck is not fantastic. You're just a guy swinging for 80 damage every turn. The energy attachment damage comes up for sure, but overall, it's just the deck can lose way too easily. If you don't win the game immediately, your late game is basically non-existent with this deck. You're just doing so little damage. Your Jolteons don't have a lot of HP. A lot of things can hit for 140. Suicune with a Greninja ping. If your bench is full, your bench probably won't be full, but Altaria with the stadium in play, the training area will hit for 140. There's a lot of decks that can just deal with this, and they really don't care about it. You can get some very quick wins. You can donk your opponent with the other Jolteon that does 60 if you evolved for the turn. That's cool, but I think that, honestly, this deck, I feel like caps out at maybe a 45% win percentage if played optimally, just over like 100 games, because there are so many starts that will just make you lose the game immediately. If you don't have the Jolteon EX immediately, if you go first, it's a really big problem. Not having that energy attachment, that extra energy attachment for game in. I don't like the deck. I've tried it in ranked. I tried it last format. I don't think it got any better. I outside of day 1 when it was fun, the deck just started to show its true inconsistencies. So I'm not seriously considering it, but I did see a lot of it last format, and again, I think it's because it's just the easiest deck in the game to play, and if you throw enough games at the wall, you'll probably come out with positive points, but to me, it's just way too frustrating to play the deck and actually consider it. Let's finally talk about this guy. If I had to pick one deck without knowing your skill level, with knowing literally nothing about you, I would tell you to play Hydreigon. It has high roll potential, which is fantastic for ranked. It is incredibly simple to play. There's not a lot that you have. There's not a lot of ways for things to go wrong for you. Really, the only thing is making sure your energy is attached right. If you're going to use the Absol, make sure that you put the 30 damage in a place where it actually matters. There's not a whole lot that you can do wrong with the Hydreigon list. Or, I guess, probably the biggest decision comes from if you have a research and a copycat in hand. Well, which one do I play first? I don't know. That's kind of it. The deck plays itself. It is super, super strong. It is probably the #1 deck you're going to run into ranked. So, if you don't like mirror matches, maybe steer clear of it in that case. But overall, it is the most beginner-friendly deck for anybody to play. You will see it absolutely everywhere. It's going to be a lot of Hydreigon for these next 2 weeks for you, so maybe that can factor into what deck you choose as well. Like, Buzzwole has a pretty good matchup into this, like a really good matchup into this, but against like everything else it doesn't. So if you're only seeing Hydreigon, maybe consider Buzzwole, or maybe even Leafeon. I don't know, probably not this deck, but yeah, Hydreigon, the top of top tier. It is for all of those factors. High roll, it'll win games fast if you high roll. It's super easy to play. It's fairly consistent. It just has everything going for it. I want to talk about Darktina next, and I think this deck should be high tier. This deck is not easy to play. If you have never played a game with Darktina, I don't recommend your first times playing it to be in ranked. I'm gonna be honest. It's not an easy deck to pilot. There are a lot of where am I energy going? What Pokemon should I be leading? There's a lot that goes into the deck that makes it tricky to pilot. So I don't recommend this deck for beginners. If you've never played Darktina, you should probably steer clear of this. There are a lot of decisions that can cost you the game if you make them incorrectly. But played optimally, this deck can beat most things that are not named Hydreigon. Hydreigon is sort of gonna roll the deck. Your Giratina is gonna get one shot by a Hydreigon. Your Darkrai is gonna really struggle just soaking up 130 damage from this thing every time it attacks, right? They're just, I mean, you just gotta attack them twice and it's over. This is a very tricky deck for Hydreigon to beat, but a lot of the other meta, it can be. It takes a good matchup into Suicune. Depending on the Altaria variant, it could be favored, it could be slightly unfavored for you, but not an easy deck at all to play. So please keep that in mind when you're thinking about trying Darktina. If you've played Darktina for a while, you don't even really need me to convince you otherwise, whether or not you're going to take it into ranked. But if you're a newer player, try to stay away from this one. There are other decks that will perform better for you than Darktina. Gardevoir EX is a deck that I unfortunately think is pretty not great. I think it's better than these two, but this deck right here, and this deck list that I've thrown up, I don't even know if this is the best one, because I've yet to see a Gardevoir list that I thought was actually good. They all seem to struggle into the meta. You're going to lose to Hydreigon basically every single time. Double Indeedee in this list can help that, but Hydreigon's going to do 150 damage in one attack, so 300 damage over 2 turns, and you're not going to knock out the Hydreigon in return with 1 Mega Gardevoir attack. It just feels really, really poor. This deck, I don't think it's positioned well. I don't think it quite has a great partner to pair with it. The deck just needs too much. With all the Psychic Pokemon in the world at its disposal, I have not seen a list that has convinced me that this is something we should be playing. I'm totally open to being proven wrong at some point, but every single list I've played feels like there's something missing with it, and I just cannot iron out a perfect 20, and tournament data shows kind of similar things, where this deck has really failed to do much in tournaments at any point. It might sneak into a day 2, might sneak into a top 16, but that's kind of where the run ends. This deck is unfortunately just too low power to do much in the meta at the moment. Let's get another no-brainer up here. Suicune Greninja, most consistent deck in the format. There are some things that aren't great for it. The new Altarias with their stadium, but you have your own stadium that players are teching in order to deal with it. And there's another version of the list that kind of goes even further on trying to deal with the new Altaria variants that can one-shot a Suicune, either after they've attacked into a Rocky Helmet and you have the stadium in play or whatever. And what we're seeing is there's either play starting planes and the usual Suicune and 2 Water Shuriken Greninja, or play Greninja EX with a Guzma in the list. Sorry, double Greninja EX with a Guzma in the list. So now you don't even have to rely on Suicune to be the primary attacker. You have the big Greninja, which is not going to get one shot by an Altaria no matter what, coupled with Guzma to get rid of the Rocky Helmet. So even if the Suicune does have to attack, you're not going to bring yourself down to 140 HP and get knocked out in return by the Altaria. So kind of what I figured was the Altaria decks would surprise the Suicune players. Whoa, they can hit for technically 160 damage now. But Suicune, drawing as many cards as it can, having some flex spots, means they can just sort of tech against it to make the matchup back in their favor, or back to, you know, closer to 50-50. So Suicune, I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's still incredibly top tier. You're going to see it everywhere in the meta. And honestly, it might even be the #1 deck for ranked because of what I said earlier, where it is the most consistent deck in the game. If you know how to pilot Suicune, you are going to be playing more games on average than all of your opponents. So if you can pilot this thing at a good win percentage, just off of the fact that you're going to be doing kind of the same thing every single game, you're going to rise to the top. This is what a lot of the top 100 players use to grind points out, because it just bricks the least. You're able to get so many more real games in with Suicune Greninja than any other deck on this list, and that is powerful in its own right. We're going to talk about these next 2 Altaria variants together because they basically go hand in hand. I think I like Altaria Gourgeist more than I like the Altaria Chingling builds. There are also quite a few ways to play both of these variants as far as the deck list goes. Like as you see here, this one's playing Chingling. Well, some that have done very, very well don't play Chingling. They play 2 Meloetta instead as a way to get all of your Psychic Pokemon out of the deck faster, plus a Precious Plaza. Precious Plaza. Why do I keep saying Precious Plaza, bro? I did it in the last video too. Peculiar Plaza. I know what the card's called. Precious Plaza just like rolls off the tongue though. Maybe we do our first errata on a card to change it to Precious Plaza because it's a better name. All right, you have the Peculiar Plaza to give yourself the free retreat so that you can start Meloetta, retreat into your attacker as soon as it's powered up, and you're like thinning your deck out as well. I kind of like the Meloetta version. I think it's pretty swag. And then we have Altaria Indeedee, Chingling, whatever. This is just like Psychic Slop Altaria. Like this list you can see here is not playing Indeedee. It's just, this is the Altaria variant that focuses more on bench sniping / item locking than the other one. You guys heard me when I talked about Altaria Greninja. I'm not, the Chingling cool, but when he's attacking into Rocky Helmets and Poison Barbs, he kind of sucks. He doesn't get a whole lot done. We're seeing a lot less Chingling in the meta at the moment. Again, Suicune Greninja Chingling is good unless they're playing Frogadier. Then it's not great at all. Against Hydreigon, it's good if they don't get their tools down. If they get their tools down, Chingling sucks. So, also, this deck list doesn't have the greatest time into Oricorio. And while I'm not respecting Oricorio as much with my rankings, I will tell you, you're still going to run into him, right? And it's kind of nice to play a deck that doesn't just take a basically auto loss to Oricorio like this one does. This variant right here, it's got to be 30% win percentage against anything with Oricorio in it. It's not great, but the Gourgeist version, just being able to one-shot an Oricorio without a cape is really fantastic. Kind of makes the matchups just basically unlosable for this Altaria variant. So I prefer the Gourgeist build. I think it gives you a wider range of good matchups than the Chingling one does. But the Chingling one takes slightly better matchups into like Mega Absol Hydreigon, and I believe Suicune as well. It's not a lot though. We're talking like a 5% difference when they're already both kind of positive. So it's not the biggest difference in the world, but those are the pros and cons to running one or the other. Time for the boy Mimikyu Greninja. I think piloted well, this is a high tier deck. For most people, it's a mid tier deck. Piloted correctly, it's a high tier. In the hands of most average players, it's probably more like mid tier. This is not a easy deck to play. I think I'd put it behind Blaziken. But again, played optimally, it does have the chance to be high tier. Like this is a deck that legit wins tournaments online. That's not, some of these decks, I don't know the last time they won a tournament. Like Blaziken, maybe it's 1-1, but I don't think it has. Any of these Kangaskhan variants haven't done it, but you really need to play optimally with the deck in order for that to happen. Again, played optimally, this guy is high tier. Played by an average player, probably more like mid tier. I think because if we're, I mean, like the actual power ceiling of this deck is probably high tier. I really love the deck. And I like these new lists that I've been seeing coming out from the original one that we made. I like no Sableye in the deck. I don't think I'd play it. It's going to, it'll really depend on how much Oricorio I'm seeing. If I'm not seeing that much Oricorio, I'm going to go without it. I'm just going to say, you know what? Maybe against the few games that I play against it, Rocky Helmet plus Greninja Pings can get me through and win me the game. If not, I'll just take the loss. But if I see, you know, every 1 in 10 game is an Oricorio deck, I might consider putting the Sableye in there because it's probably just going to get more in the way than not. I think not playing Peculiar Plaza with this deck is a throw. I don't know why you would ever do that. You need to have the retreating option for the Mimikyu. Like, you need to be able to pivot that guy, and him having 2 retreat costs means that's not going to really happen without a Plaza. The one Giratina is fine. It's okay. I don't love it as a decision, but I can see why we're greeting for it to get the double Rocky Helmet into the deck. One is fine. Like, if you just find the Giratina early, you're good. You never need more than 2. But if he only shows up in the very end of the game, then you're going to be in some trouble with the one Giratina variant. So I really like the deck. I think it's tough to play. It can beat basically anything that isn't Suicune. Suicune's its hardest matchup by far. But other than that, played optimally, it can put your opponent in the blender. It's very, very fun. I love the Mimikyu disguise. I have 2 full art Mimikyus, and honestly, it might be my favorite looking card in the game. I love the full art Mimikyu. It looks so, so good. And I'm going to be grinding ranked. This is probably be my #1 pick for day 1 because it's a mix of fun, not really top tier, so you're not going to run into a whole bunch of mirror matches, and it has some skill to it. It's got some depth with this deck, so it might be my top choice for ranked based on those. I don't just weigh, when I think about what deck am I going to play for ranked, I don't just weigh like, well, what's the strongest deck? Because if I was doing that, I'd be a Hydreigon or a Suicune main. I like to blend what deck can I have the most amount of fun with while also remaining consistent and doing fairly well into the rest of the meta. We've only got a couple more decks to talk about, and I'm going to talk about these 2 at the same time because they are essentially the same thing. They have the same strategy. These are the new stall decks to hit the meta. On a power level basis, I think they are both around top of mid-tier, bottom to high tier. Now, would I actually recommend these for ranked? No. And there's one big reason why. These decks take forever to complete a game. Every single deck I've played on ladder, by the end of it, my timer's down to like 15 minutes. Usually it's like 17 and a half or something. Usually playing pretty quickly when I'm playing ranked, not streaming. But these decks take literally forever to complete a game. It is insane. Now, the difference between Snorlax and Steelix, I think I like Snorlax a bit more. Really, the 2 biggest difference are Steelix can high roll a bit more. You can start with a Brock in hand, go second, and start swinging faster than a Snorlax deck ever can. Snorlax is going to be more consistent. I'm doing what I want to. Also, there's the space in the deck to run both Sabrina and Cyrus. Whereas with Steelix, because you're playing a stage 1, you are playing the Brock to accelerate energy to it, it's going to take a bit longer. So even into matchups where you're favored, like Suicune you should almost never lose to, but you can actually brick against them, and that's going to make you lose the game. Snorlax is going to more consistently do what it needs to do. So if you're putting all this time into playing these games out, you might as well have the most consistent way to do it, because it's going to take you forever. This is going to be a really slow grind, unless your opponent is, and not only that, but if you're playing this stall deck in ranked, I feel like this is where you will see the petty players come out, and you'll be playing against people who are running their timer down as long as possible, just to make sure that it takes you forever to get your 10 points. Like, I can absolutely see that happening. Your opponent's going to get very tired of you going, Indeedee, lucky ice pop, ooh, heads, lucky ice pop, ooh, heads, lucky ice pop, ooh, heads. You know, they're going to get sick of it, man, and they're going to stall you out for time and make your life terrible. So these are decks that I would recommend not playing for ranked if you're trying to grind quickly. But if you want to be a terrorist on the ladder, these are the 2 #1 picks. They're actually like decent decks. They're pretty good into certain matchups. Yes, if you hit something like Charizard, it's kind of an auto loss. You should probably concede on the spot. It's going to take 1 in 100 games. Are you going to win before they set up a Mega Charizard Y and demolish your big tank in the active spot? But they're definitely strong decks. They're out here winning tournaments, but for ranked, probably not the best play. We have just one more real deck to talk about, and that is going to be Chandelure Meowth. Chandelure Meowth, I think he lives somewhere here in the mid-tier. There are some benefits to it and why it might be better than a mid-tier deck to consider. Like, I will probably play some games with it in ranked. And like I said, anything in mid-tier, I honestly don't really consider. But Chandelure has the ability to beat anything if Meowth is on your side enough, right? Meowth's not going to get knocked out if you flip heads. He's just going to survive the turn, allowing you to boost the Chandelure's damage even further. It can also, against these stall decks, you can build up enough damage where the Chandelure comes active in just 2 shots, whatever the stall is, because you've turned the Chandelure into a monster that's dealing 180 damage with each attack. That's not going to go well for the stall players. Against some other things, I mean, it does have ways to be beaten. If your Meowths don't flip heads, if you just get unlucky with the tails, you're going to lose the game. You won't set up the Chandelure fast enough. If your opponent is able to set up damage on the Chandelure before you get a Poncho down, and you can't find a heal, and they're able to knock it out quickly, if you don't get double Chandelure online, you might lose the game. There are some things that make it not the most broken thing in the world, obviously. So I also think it's very easy to play, which is another component. It's another one of those brain off decks. You don't have to do a lot of thinking. Put the Meowth in the active spot. If you're dead drawing, attach to the Meowth, draw some extra cards. If not, build up to Chandelure, play your supporters down, get your damage big. It's not too difficult. It's a really, really easy deck to play. It's fun. Meowth can go crazy and give you a lot of laughs. I like the deck. I'm a fan of the Chandelure Meowth deck, but I don't think it's any higher than mid-tier. And then I guess just to avoid any questions, the Decidueye, maybe Rogue, maybe like bottom of Rogue if you see a bunch of Suicunes, it's an option. And then all these other decks, they don't even deserve talking about, except for this one. I mean, we talked about it with Suicune. This is also not a deck anymore. It might be like bottom of mid-tier. It's still strong, but I don't know why you would play this over any other Altaria variant. This is not a real deck. This is not a real deck anymore. So this is where we are. This is the tier list. Hopefully you guys now feel very ready for ranked and can get to Master Ball quickly, or get to Master Ball doing something fun. At least you now know why the deck you're playing is not gaining points. Or, yeah. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you again for 20K. Comment down below. Make sure you're subscribed to potentially win a full art research. Like the video. I'll see you on the next one.